What's up, guys? Janet here, aka Gameonysus, and you are listening to Gameonysus Daily. Today is Friday, May 19th. Hopefully you guys are heading into your weekends, feeling good about where you're at in your lives, with your game progress. If you are off on the weekends, hopefully you have something restful planned, or maybe you're going out, hanging out with some people. If you work, hopefully you're getting mentally prepared to survive that work weekend. So, regardless of where you guys are at, we're just going to jump into it with our video game news. So, starting off with Destiny 2, which is a franchise I'm not really familiar with, but they had their kind of big event revealing details on Destiny 2, so obviously I can't not talk about Destiny 2 when it comes to this. So some updates on that. Destiny 2 is coming out September 4th. It will be available on PS4, Xbox One, and also on PC, which I believe is a first for the franchise. So the PC version of Destiny 2 will be available on Blizzard's Battle.net instead of Steam or anything else similar to Steam, which I think is kind of a really interesting route to take, and is something that you don't see super often. It's a little weird, but I guess, if you want your game on PC, then it doesn't really matter if it's through Steam or anything like that, as long as you can get it. I imagine so, at least. I'm not a PC owner. Other than that, a couple of updates on what Destiny 2 is, how it's different than Destiny 1. Once again, I'm not super familiar with Destiny 1, but just in terms of some of the changes they're making. Crucible is now 4v4 for all modes. Trials, raids, and the Nightfall will be available to all players via a new system called Guided Games that allows in-game clans to basically guide a player through some of the more difficult end-game content. So what Guided Games basically is that it lets players join up with clans even if those players aren't members. So it's kind of like a matchmaking system similar to the Looking for Game system that's already kind of in place, generally speaking. So if you're raiding and you need, you want someone else to join you, you have an extra slot and you don't really need, to utilize it to the best of your abilities, you can open it up to other people, which allows gamers to experience it without having to, I guess, be at the level that it would normally require to experience that. So I think that's pretty cool, just because it gives, more options to players, and it's funny because I know on Waypoint Radio, which is a podcast I listen to, Patrick Klepek was actually talking about having done something just like this, so I think it's really cool when games think about the things players are already doing and try to incorporate that into their games, and facilitate those kind of things that are already happening in the gaming community. I think it's pretty cool on Destiny's part. So moving on, we also have, in terms of what makes this different than Destiny 1, there's going to be more flexibility in terms of weapon management. So there are going to be 3 weapon slots that are going to be allegedly more flexible than Destiny 1's, which were or there are weapon slots that are more flexible than Destiny 1's, which the weapon slots there were kinetic energy and power. Once again, I'm not familiar with the series, so this isn't super meaningful to me personally, but if you're familiar, I'm sure it is. There are also new classes, there are new planets, and Destiny 2 will allow players to launch activities from within anywhere in the world without having to go to orbit. I feel like it might be a little too clear that I'm pretty unfamiliar with Destiny 1 based on that spiel, but that was just based on research in terms of what's different in Destiny 2 versus Destiny 1. Having talked to some people that are Destiny fans, a lot of people are saying it feels a little bit more like an update rather than a full-fledged new game, which, I can see how they would think that based on the way it's presented. Is kind of it seems like this whole Destiny 2 thing is kind of more presented as what's different / added on to Destiny 1, which, any sequel of a game is going to obviously be related to the game that came before that, but I think Destiny 2 is, like, that's especially the case in Destiny 2. Maybe, like, to an extent that's a little too much for some people. But I don't know. I think maybe with the whole Destiny 2 thing, it might just be also a way to maybe invite some new players in, because, like, for me never playing Destiny 1, I probably would never get around to it, but with a game like Destiny 2 coming out, I might be more inclined to kind of jump on board with things. I'm not personally more inclined to jump on board with it necessarily, but I'd be more interested in Destiny in terms of Destiny 2 rather than, like, going to Destiny 1, which is a much older game at this point. Speaking of sequels, we just found out from DontNod, which is the team that developed Life is Strange. They had a little video they put out that was, thanking their fans for, buying the game and all the appreciation and the wonderful community that's formed around Life is Strange, of, passionate, creative people, making cosplays and all that stuff, like you would see with any franchise. So they were just kind of giving a shout out to fans today. And they're like, oh, people are always asking us, well, what are you guys working on? And we're here to confirm that we're working on a sequel to Life is Strange. And we've been, like, to the, like, disc version of Life is Strange, basically. So they said ever since the disc version, the hard copy version released, they've been working on something else in that same, like, universe. And when I say the disc version of Life is Strange, I mean, like, all the episodes. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Life is Strange is an episodic game, an adventure game, visual novel-esque, very decision-oriented, that involves, like, a supernatural mechanic. That's basically what Life is Strange is. It also takes place in, like, a high school art boarding school place in Arcadia Bay. So it's got a lot of interesting things going on. So there are 5 episodes total, and that was what came out in the disc version. So they're making a second Life is Stranger, basically. They didn't give any other details on it. All they said is that they're working on it, and it was confirmed by Square Enix that this will not be shown at E3 at all, so it's not going to be anything that we're going to get more news on anytime soon, it seems like. As far as this whole thing with Life is Strange 2, I feel like it's really weird because even though there are, like, unanswered questions to an extent, I don't want to give anything too much away in case you haven't played Life is Strange, but it didn't seem open-ended enough to really warrant a sequel. It also seems weird to have a sequel because, like, it's already an episodic game, so it's like, I guess you're just adding more episodes, maybe, or I don't really know what direction they're going to take this in. And, I'm curious to see, like, is this going to be kind of a standalone game in a sense? Like, will my decisions in the previous Life is Strange games impact this one? Is it going to be, like, kind of one continuous journey that I'm going on where my decisions at the end of episode 5 are going to bleed into this kind of episode 6 they're making, or maybe episode 1 again type thing. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with that. I'm kind of disappointed that they are coming out with something else in this universe, honestly, because, I think too often we continue with IPs that maybe should have just been, a few really good games rather than a lot of good games, but maybe they get, like, a little stagnant sometimes. I also feel like I felt like I was done with that series, and I really liked that series, and now it's back, and I'm like, kind of don't want you to come back, kind of liked how things were. I'm still going to get it for sure, have to, have to check it out, so I can understand, like, their drive to make that. I mean, obviously they have a strong fan community, and I think it will sell well and do well, but as a gamer, I'm kind of bummed that they're making one. As a Life is Strange fan, I'm still kind of bummed, but I'll definitely check it out because I'm interested in it. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to hear more about that project because it's really strange to me, no pun intended. All right, well, continuing forward with our news, a really small thing from PSVR that I came across. This game called Special Delivery is going to be coming to PSVR. Special Delivery has been out for a while, and it's basically just a spiritual successor to Paperboy. And now it's going to be coming to VR, I think, next month. So if you have VR, you might want to check that out. Once again, spiritual successors are always a little weird. I watched the trailer for the PSVR version of Special Delivery, and it looks like it's kind of okay, but not really my thing, probably. I was never also a fan of Paperboy. I played it a little bit at the arcade. It was hard. I didn't like it. That's kind of the end of that. On to kind of, not necessarily releases, but things that kind of updates on things we already know about or games that are already out, in terms of, updates coming to the games or ports for the games. Switch is going to get Owlboy. The Switch will be getting Owlboy, in Japan at least. We don't know if that's going to come over to the US, and by that I mean digital. It's a digital indie game, presumably. So Owlboy is just like an indie game that was, fairly popular. I believe it's like platform-esque, basically. But that was like a big project that dropped not too long ago. So that'll be on Switch, which is interesting. I haven't heard about that before. But once again, that's in Japan, so you'd have to do some like special things with your My Nintendo account, kind of have a second Japanese one to be able to use that. But once again, as I mentioned in the last episode, the Switch is region free, so you can go ahead and enjoy that game if you so choose. So that's pretty cool. Other updates on games that are already out and about. Overwatch is adding at least three new arena maps into its game, and it's going to add some extra skins, some dance emotes. This is all leading up to the anniversary celebration, which starts May 23rd. So once that kicks off, your guys are going to get all of those things. But right now, basically, like, the team's just kind of teasing things that are going to be coming up, kind of hyping up this anniversary that they're going to be celebrating really soon. Really interesting to see the updates coming to Overwatch, especially, earlier in this episode I was talking about Destiny versus Destiny 2 and how some people felt it's like a little bit more of an update than a new full-fledged game. Then, of course, we have Splatoon and Splatoon 2, so it's interesting seeing this trend of games that have a very strong online component, or maybe even solely an online component in Overwatch's case, where, like, seeing how they're negotiating, updating the game and keeping, that fan base satisfied versus moving on and just kind of making a sequel to that game that's still in the universe. And, how much do you have to update it to make it into a sequel? What do people want from updates or from DLC? Would you rather have a sequel or a DLC? That type of thing. Those kind of conversations and ideas are definitely floating around a lot, I feel like, in the current industry space. So just something to keep in mind, something to think about. But yeah, if you're an Overwatch fan, May 23rd, that's your date. Check it out. It should be really cool. And also something that I didn't mention in last episode, South Park, The Fractured But Whole, got its release date, which is going to be October 17th. So if you're a fan of the show or the games, I actually heard the games are really good. I'm not a fan of the show, so I never played the games, but I hear they're good, so I don't know, maybe they are. Once again, that's coming out October 17th, which is, really nice news because the game actually got delayed not too long ago, so I'm, psyched for fans of that franchise to be able to have a release date for that game. Alright, moving on to kind of more general industry news. I just want to draw some attention to GamerX East, New York City. They just launched their Kickstarter. GamerX, if you're not familiar, and this is kind of just a direct quote from the Kickstarter, it is an event where people come together to celebrate games in the ways that they're enjoyed by the LGBTQIA+ community. It's a place where people can play, learn, make friends, and have one-of-a-kind experiences. Since 2012, there have been 7 GamerX events from San Francisco to New York and even Sydney, Australia. GamerX East is the New York event. So right now, the Kickstarter is out for GamerX East. This is, I believe, the second year that GamerX is having a what would you really call it? Like a convention. There we go. That's the word. Having a convention in like their East location, which is going to be in New York once again. So they have a Kickstarter for that, and the dates on that convention are November 4th and 5th. Their goal is to raise $34,000. They are currently at around $3,700, and they have, I believe, 28 or 29 days to go. Actually, I can just tab on over and take a look at that. They have 28 days to go. And once again, they're about at $3,700, so with 63 backers. So a little bit more information on that. Seems like a really cool thing. I actually have never gone to conventions for games or expos or anything like that. So that's something I definitely want to do in the future. But, I think it's really cool that Gamer X, oh, and by the way, that's Gamer spelled Gaymer, Gamer X. I think it's a really cool thing that exists. I really like stuff that gets specific and, that highlights, especially marginalized communities that, are in the video game industry. I feel like, video games all about culture, all about people, and there's like a lot of ways that we can relate different aspects of our identities to our passion of games. So I really like whenever there's anything that does that in general. So this seems really cool, and I've seen a lot about it on Twitter from just other game people I follow that have gone to GamerX. Sounds like a really cool space. Once again, that's taking place in New York, so if you're interested and want to check that out, that'll be in the fall, November 4th and 5th. The Kickstarter, I'm just going to read through a couple of the options you guys have if you're interested in backing that. I think I actually will be backing this, not to get a ticket because I'm not going to go to New York, but just to kind of support it. So you can, of course, do a $1 pledge and it'll just get your name on a thank you page. If you do 6 or more, you get a pack of GamerX stickers and the thank you page part. 10 or more, you get Gaming in Color, which is a downloadable copy of Gaming in Color, which is a documentary about LGBT people in the world of video games. If you pledge 20 or more, you get the game Read Only Memories for PC, Mac/Linux. And the thank you page part. 20 or more, you get a random shirt. And they have like a couple examples of the kind of shirts you would be getting from. And if you pledge 30 or more, you get the Gamer X East ticket and the thank you page part. So if you want to go to the convention/expo, whatever the best term for that is, that's going to be 30 or more on the Kickstarter. If you're just looking to support, there are lower tiers, and of course there's also higher tiers as well. One thing that's not super clear on their Kickstarter is if I get like one of these, do I get the previous tiers? I'm not sure if it's a rule on Kickstarter for that to be a thing, but they're not really like super clear on it, which is an issue for me because I would love to do the random shirt tier, but only if it includes like the documentary and the stickers, because I love documentaries and I love stickers and I want to get all those things. So I might actually reach out to someone or maybe just do some Googling around a little bit more to see exactly what that is, because it's not clearly stated on there, and I kind of wish it was. I also wish they had FAQs. They don't have an FAQ section filled out. That would be a good thing to fill out. So, and last but not least, in terms of kind of, zooming out in the game industry for news that kind of stood out to me, this is via Gameonysus, and then I also looked at Fortune for this, just to kind of get more details on it. So, leading eSports company ESL, which was formerly known as Electronic Sports League, has signed a deal that will bring exclusive content to Facebook. So, I kind of dug into this a little bit more based on that original Gameonysus post that I saw. And I just did a quick Google on, ESL, Facebook, eSports deal, just to kind of see what was out there. And I thought it, for something like this, for me especially, because I'm not as in the esports community as I want to be, or as people that, actually follow that information are. So I actually really like looking at, like, non-gaming sources for this, because they break it down, like, into really simplistic terms, because obviously their audience is going to be less familiar with gaming than, like, a gaming website or publication will assume that they're fans know a good amount about, or that the readers or viewers know a good amount about esports. That's how we say that phrase. So since I don't know a lot about it, I like to kind of go out to non-gaming sources. So this is just going to be kind of a direct quote and a little bit of a paraphrase from Fortune, but Facebook said Thursday that it has partnered with ESL, which once again is formerly known as Electronic Sports League, to live stream video game tournaments, also known as eSports, of course. As part of a deal, Facebook will live stream upcoming ESL contests in which players battle off facing and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, so CSGO. Facebook will also host a weekly show dedicated to highlights and interviews with players participating in the CSGO tournament. Each week, ESL will live stream 30 hours of Counter-Strike tournaments, known as Rank S competitions, via Facebook. The Rank S competition involves 300 gamers from North America and Europe who battle to win a cut of the $40,000 prize money. ESL awards each $40,000 prize money in ESL awards each month. In total, ESL plans to broadcast over 5,500 hours of gaming tournaments starting in June. So not only is Facebook, getting a good amount of that live stream stuff, they're also getting some content that's going to be exclusive. So that means it's content you can only get via Facebook. Of course, this is a really smart move on Facebook's part. Getting involved in esports. I already can see that esports is totally going to pick up. In a few years, it's going to be, a big deal just as much as any other sport is to me. And I know to some people that probably sounds like a little bit ridiculous that it could take off like that. But if you think about it, even like not that long ago, professional athletes weren't really a thing. Like that's a relatively new idea. Like, way back in the day, like you'd have to play football during the season and then like get a job at a factory in the summer to make ends meet because you couldn't live off, just that check without having like the summer income, which sounds crazy to us now because we know how much professional athletes make and are worth. But all of this is to say that it takes time for things to develop and that, eventually it'll get there, just kind of given, in time, the natural progression of things. Obviously, the gaming community, it continues to grow. Esports also, I feel like, has been kicking up recently. I mean, you can even see that just if you follow games news. You kind of see everyone's slowly getting on board kind of all at once, from like gamers to like game journalism sites. So like, Kotaku just hired a couple people that specifically do esports stuff. Facebook's getting involved in esports. Like everyone's about to like kind of jump on this train. So if you're not on it, definitely get on that. Because I think it's going to be really, really fun, just as a fan of video games. That's actually a reason that I want to get more into Overwatch, even just as a spectator, because they're like starting a league for that. That's like going to be pretty official, and I like sports, and I think it'd be cool to like merge my enjoyment of sports with my enjoyment of games, which is literally what esports is. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, once again, smart move on Facebook's part. Facebook will consume the entire internet. They already have consumed the entire internet. It's kind of scary, but I've just accepted that this is reality, and that's basically it. So yeah, but as much as you like or don't like Facebook, you have to accept the fact that you probably have one anyway, and it is pretty convenient to watch these live streams just on Facebook, super easy. If you have a Chromecast, I think you can also just put that straight on your TV. So it really, really makes everything really accessible. So even if you're not like a big fan of it, I don't think you can like discount how that's like a good thing for esports, even if it's maybe not exactly where you want to be, or maybe you'd rather like a different medium, get more involved in it. But personally, I think it's really cool. It's exciting. Good on Facebook's part. Excited about it for esports, kind of, getting that a little bit more mainstream, getting more attention to that. Interested to see where it goes, even though I don't follow Counter-Strike at all. But all right, that about does it for our news and our updates of all things that are going on in the video game industry right now. So let me know if I missed anything, guys. Let me know if there are stories that you really connected with, things you're excited about. You know, are you hyped for Destiny 2? Did you check out the feed on that? What do you think about Life is Strange? Have you gone to any conventions? Have you backed anything on Kickstarter before? I know we've been talking about Kickstarter a bit as the show has gone on with the last episode and this episode as well. And I want to leave you guys also with a question. So my question for you is, at what point does a game, especially a game that is primarily online or utilizes multiplayer very heavily, at what point does a game like that warrant a sequel or an additional game in the series versus just doing DLCs or updates? Do you have a preference on the way your franchise gets refreshed? Do you prefer having a whole new game? Would you rather have updates on it? I know that's a big conversation when it comes to, like, you know, a lot of games, especially like, you know, sports sims, games like, or, you know, more traditional or more mainstream games like Mario Kart. So I don't think you can get much more mainstream than sports sims, really, in some ways, but that's a separate conversation. So, you know, with like Mario Kart 8, we had those DLCs that came out, and then obviously the deluxe edition has just all the stuff there. You know, would you prefer to see that as a separate game? So yeah, just kind of thinking about at what point should you just release a whole new game? If you keep updating a game, does it kind of just become a new game entirely? Like, how long can they update Overwatch for? Can it just be forever? Or at some point, would you want to see an Overwatch 2? Like, is that something that you would be interested in? So definitely let me know. You can either let me know by commenting directly on the SoundCloud audio file, or you can hit me up on social media, specifically Twitter, because that's, like, you know, a good place to talk, basically. But if you want to follow me on other stuff, I'm also on Instagram. I'm on both Twitter and Instagram at Gameonysus. So that handle is Gameonysus, spelled Gameonysus, Gameonysus. So once again, my name's Janet, but the handle's Gameonysus, so hit me up on social media with feedback on this episode, with answers to the question I posed, which once again is, at what point do you want a sequel to a game? Are there some games you wouldn't even want sequels for and would just prefer updates? Definitely let me know, and I will see you guys here tomorrow. Bye.